For years, Senegal has relied on foreign oil, importing crude from other countries and refining it to meet local needs. Even then, its refineries weren't built to handle just any crude oil. Each type requires specific refining processes. That meant Senegal had no choice but to bring in not just crude oil, but also already refined fuel to keep up with demand. But here's the shocking part. While Senegal sits on massive oil reserves, its own crude wasn't part of the equation. Whether by oversight or external influence, the country never tapped into its own resources for refining. That changes now. With a bold move by Senegal's new president, the country has flipped the script. A brand new refinery is now up and running, designed specifically to process crude oil extracted within Senegal's borders. This isn't just an upgrade, it's a game changer. Instead of sending raw oil overseas and buying back refined fuel at high prices, Senegal will now extract, refine, and use its own oil. And with production exceeding domestic demand, the surplus can be sold abroad, bringing in new revenue. But what led to this transformation, and why is this such a historic moment for Senegal? For years, Senegal found itself stuck in a frustrating cycle. It would dig up its own crude oil, sell it to other countries for cheap, then buy it back at much higher prices after it was refined. In simple terms, Senegal had the oil, but someone else was making all the real money. This setup wasn't just unfair, it left Senegal completely dependent on foreign refineries. Anytime global oil prices shot up or supply chains were disrupted, the country had no choice but to pay whatever price was set by outside markets. It was like owning a fruit farm, but still having to buy your own juice at the supermarket for double the price. Senegal even had to import crude oil from other countries just to refine it locally. To make matters worse, much of the fuel people actually needed, like gasoline, diesel, and kerosene, had to be brought in from abroad because the existing refineries weren't built to handle Senegal's own oil. Now here's where things get even more interesting. This wasn't just bad luck. It was by design. For decades, powerful interests, both inside and outside Senegal, kept the country from developing its own refining industry. While international oil companies and foreign economies thrived on Senegal's resources, the country itself was left in a position of dependence, unable to reap the full benefits of its own oil wealth. Political agreements, economic deals, and possibly even behind-the-scenes pressure made sure Senegal remained tied to foreign-controlled energy markets. Whether through policies that discouraged investment in local refining or backroom deals that ensured control stayed in outside hands, the outcome was always the same. Senegal had oil, but it didn't have power over it. For the first time in its history, Senegal is breaking free from a system that kept its oil wealth in the hands of others. Under the leadership of its newly elected president, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, the country has made a bold move, one that could change its economic future forever. This is a game changer, not just for the country, but for Africa as a whole. For years, African nations have been stuck in a cycle where they extract raw materials, sell them for cheap, and then pay high prices to import finished products. It's a system that has drained national wealth and kept economies dependent on foreign industries. But Senegal is proving that this cycle can be broken. By refining its own oil, the country is no longer just a supplier of raw materials. It's stepping into the global market as a producer of valuable petroleum products. This shift has the potential to create jobs, boost revenue, and make Senegal less vulnerable to price fluctuations in foreign markets. The journey to this moment began when major oil and gas reserves were discovered in Senegal's offshore fields, Sangomar and Grand Tortue Ahmeyim. At first, many feared that Senegal would fall into the same trap as other oil-rich African nations, exporting crude oil while importing expensive refined fuel. But this time the story is playing out differently. Rather than continuing the old cycle of exporting crude oil only to buy back refined fuel at sky-high prices, Senegal has flipped the script. The country has made a strategic investment in its own energy future by building a state-of-the-art refinery, one that can process its own oil instead of relying on foreign refineries. By early 2025, this facility was up and running, marking a turning point for Senegal's economy. It's not just about having a refinery, it's about gaining real control over the country's energy resources. The benefits of this shift are enormous. First, producing refined fuel domestically means Senegal no longer has to depend on foreign suppliers for gasoline, diesel, and other essential fuels. In the past, the country was vulnerable to sudden spikes in oil prices, and global market shocks. If a major political crisis or trade restriction disrupted supply chains, Senegal had little choice but to accept whatever price was dictated by international markets. Now, things are different. If you are still watching this video, it means you love it. Why not take out a second and hit that like button? Have you done that? Let us move on. With the power to refine its own oil, Senegal is no longer at the mercy of unpredictable global markets. Fuel shortages, sudden price hikes, and supply chain disruptions that once put pressure on businesses and households are now far less of a threat. This newfound stability means industries can function without fear of energy crises, and everyday people can access fuel at more predictable prices. But the benefits go far beyond just energy security. By refining oil locally, Senegal is turning a once-lost opportunity into a major economic advantage. Crude oil on its own isn't worth nearly as much as the refined fuels it produces. In the past, Senegal would sell raw oil at low prices, then spend far more to import gasoline, diesel, and other refined products. Now, by keeping the refining process within its borders, Senegal is capturing more of the value, increasing national earnings, and keeping wealth inside the country, and it's already making an impact. Senegal has begun exporting refined fuel to the European Union, with major buyers including the Netherlands and Germany. This means the country isn't just meeting its own energy needs, it's becoming a key player in the global oil market. The revenue from these exports isn't just padding corporate profits, it's funding national development. Money that once flowed out of the country is now being reinvested in infrastructure, healthcare, and education. Beyond boosting government revenue, this shift is also creating thousands of jobs. The refinery isn't just a single facility, it's the heart of an entire ecosystem of economic activity. Construction workers built it, engineers operate it, and maintenance crews keep it running. But the impact doesn't stop there. The need for transport, logistics, and specialised equipment has sparked growth in related industries, opening up even more opportunities. Perhaps one of the most exciting aspects is the development of a skilled workforce. With a refinery up and running, more Senegalese workers are receiving training in high-tech fields, creating long-term careers that go beyond traditional industries. This isn't just about oil, it's about transforming Senegal's economy for the future. And as the country's refining industry expands, it's attracting interest from international investors in sectors like petrochemicals and lubricant production. When you look at how other African oil-rich nations have handled their resources, it becomes clear why Senegal's decision is such a big deal. Take Nigeria, for example. As Africa's largest oil producer, you'd expect it to be an energy powerhouse, supplying its own people with affordable fuel, but that's not the case. Despite pumping out over 1 million barrels of crude oil every single day, Nigeria still relies on imports for more than 90% of its refined fuel. Why? Because its refineries are either outdated, poorly managed, or completely dysfunctional. This has led to constant fuel shortages, soaring prices, and billions of dollars wasted on importing what should have been produced at home. Senegal is determined not to repeat those mistakes. From the very beginning, it has made efficiency and proper management a priority, ensuring that its refinery actually works as intended, giving the country control over its own energy supply instead of leaving it at the mercy of foreign markets. Angola is another cautionary tale. Despite being one of Africa's top oil producers, it has spent decades depending on imported fuel. That means anytime global oil prices rise, the country feels the impact hard. If Angola had invested earlier in refining its own crude, it could have shielded itself from economic instability and kept more of its wealth circulating within its borders. Senegal is showing that there's another way. By taking control of the entire oil production process, from extraction to refining and distribution, it's proving that African nations don't have to settle for being just suppliers of raw materials. They can process, profit, and dictate the terms of their own industries. But beyond the money and economic advantages, this move is about something even bigger: independence. For far too long, African nations have seen their natural wealth benefit foreign powers more than their own people. For years, Africa's vast oil reserves have been controlled by outside forces. Foreign companies and governments have dictated how oil is extracted, processed, and sold, leaving African nations with little say over their own wealth. The result? These countries earn only a fraction of what their resources are actually worth, while foreign corporations walk away with massive profits. But now, Senegal is rewriting that script. By refining its own oil, the country is no longer just a supplier of raw materials, it's taking full ownership of its energy industry. This shift puts Senegal in control of its own destiny, allowing it to keep more of its wealth at home instead of handing it over to foreign refineries. Could this be a turning point? Can Senegal, now fully in charge of its oil, change its future and build lasting prosperity? And if one African nation can do it, what's stopping the others? Saudi Arabia was once just a vast desert before it transformed into an economic powerhouse, using its oil wealth. Could African oil-producing nations follow the same path? Senegal's refinery is more than just an economic boost. It's a step toward regional influence. With its ability to refine petroleum locally, Senegal is positioning itself as a key energy supplier for West Africa. Instead of West African nations relying on fuel imports from Europe and the Middle East, they could now turn to Senegal for their energy needs. This strengthens economic ties within the region and helps reduce dependency on foreign markets. But with great opportunity comes great responsibility. Many African countries blessed with oil wealth have fallen into the trap of corruption and mismanagement. Instead of fueling national progress, oil revenues often end up lining the pockets of a privileged few, while ordinary citizens see little benefit. Senegal's challenge will be to avoid this fate. If the country wants to turn oil profits into real development, it must ensure transparency, fair distribution of wealth, and investment in crucial sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. So what do you think? Should African leaders make it their top priority to use their resources for national development? Could Senegal's move set an example for the rest of the continent? Share your thoughts in the comments.